This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Dear son, please stay here with me, knowing the one and only truth within. We are infinite beings of love, light, and warmth that nothing can change or hide. It is here where your true self remains the same, no matter what anyone says or does. It is here where your life's challenges hold purpose and beautiful rhythm. And it is here, dear son, where we first met and will forever hold hands in time. Valeria Teles interviews Nadia Davis, the author of Home is Within You, a memoir. Nadia Davis has a lifetime record of passionate work improving the lives of others. The youngest of 7 children to ethnically mixed parents of Native American, Mexican, and German descent, her father was her inspiration. Wallace Davis, an orphaned field worker who later became one of the first Spanish-speaking attorneys in California, whose successful lawsuit brought an end to discriminatory ability grouping of non-English-speaking children. Nadia received her BA in sociology with a specialization in juvenile justice from the University of California, Los Angeles in 1993, her Juris Doctorate from Loyola Law School in 1996, and was admitted to the state bar in 1997. At UCLA, Nadia led numerous efforts to empower, and at Fox television show In Living Color, and studying better ways to assist paroled youth at the David Kenyon Juvenile Justice Center in South Central LA. In law school, she chaired the Public Interest Law Foundation, studied human rights and environmental law in Central America, and transcribed law books for a blind student. Following law school, she independently authored a handbook and conducted seminars throughout the state for immigrant youth seeking a higher education, protected the rights of new citizens against unfounded accusations, and spearheaded efforts to unite political parties in the county. Nadia has overcome multiple challenges. She is a survivor of child and adult trauma. As an adult, she abruptly lost her father, a child in utero, and best friend in just a year. In July of 1999, she suffered a near-fatal car accident. After months of rehabilitation, she returned to work in her wheelchair and eventually walked again. Nadia's work focus shifted to assisting victims of interpersonal violence. As executive director of the Alameda County Family Justice Center, she led collaboration efforts of multiple co-located public, nonprofit, and government agencies in an effort to provide more easily accessible and efficient services to victims of domestic violence, rape, sexual exploitation, and child abuse. Meet Nadia at nadia-davis.com. Here is the interview with Nadia Davis.
In your own words, who is Nadia Davis?
First, I want to say thank you for allowing this space. And I have not been asked that question directly in a long time. My life has brought me to a point of knowing that I'm not a body. And at the core, I'm a spirit. We all are beyond this present time and space. And when I remind myself of that, I can go in and out of, living more in a duality where I remind myself that there is light. I can be in light while there is darkness in this life, in this world. With that, in my physical being, I'm a passionate advocate for everything that involves, healing, human rights, people's truth and dignity, autonomy, being respected. That began very early on as a child, and I had parents that did model that in their work throughout, professionally or my mom as a homemaker. And so I'm a mother at my core in every single way. I'm an attorney by trade and a Kundalini Yoga teacher by trade, and now a writer. And in all those ways, a human being that just wants to make the world a better place. That's what drives me. That's what gives me hope every day. That's what just is my source, my life force, my source of living. And in addiction, that's smothered. And today, I'm very grateful to be back into who I know is my authentic self, Nadia Davis. So,
thank you for being you, Nadia. And with that, I love this thought even that comes from knowing, or even it transcends knowing. It can come from a realization in the moment in time, which is so, when you think about it, it's beyond even rational thinking, that we are beyond our bodies, so we are beyond thinking. How did you discover that? Was that a moment or a process, a journey?
It was definitely a process and a journey. And I don't think I would have been ready to hear it, "You are not a body," if I hadn't gone through a journey of trying everything that really was not serving me and was not me. And the woman who told me that, Miriam Paul, is a wonderful human being, does a lot of work in, ego mind, understanding how our mind works, and a lot of stuff in Course in Miracles and various, Bradshaw, various beautiful people that work in that area. But her core message to me at the beginning of my journey was, "You are not a body." And I almost took it, offensively, because I felt so violated and
yes.
and had been identified as a body and identified myself as that. And so kind of allowed myself to be treated as that. And, it certainly was a journey and a process.
When you say that, that makes me think about suffering, that for most of us, that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
To suffer in order to realize the truth, as I call it, with capital T. From your perspective, Nadia, does it always take suffering, do you feel, or we can learn in a different way, in a more gentle way?
I think it does take suffering, yet I was blessed to find the practice of Kundalini Yoga and the teachings. And what was part of my journey after hearing the message, "You are not a body," was that through suffering, we can see what is not us. And another mentor of mine, Priya Jain, she actually just talked about this. And there's a mantra, and it's Nati Nati Atma. And it's like, what does not serve me, or what is not me. And so when I heard that, it allowed me to cry over the suffering, that there is a bigger meaning, and to kind of look back and go, that's what I was doing. I was simply running to stand still, to find what my truth was and what everyone's is. And so that got me unstuck in the suffering and pain. And unstuck is a strong word. It never goes away, yet it's kind of what we do with it. And so I do think that it is suffering that is required. I do think our existence in physical form and finite form is that journey. It's limited.
And in a way, like you said, it resonates that it's easier to recognize who we are not than who we are.
Right? And most people ask the question, like, who am I really? And they seek to find that. And sometimes it's easier, especially for folks like us that have had that trauma, to ask the question that you just asked, and is what is not me.
Right. Kundalini Yoga, I have interviewed people on the topic, but I don't know much about it from experience. So talk to me for a moment about what that is and how do you teach Kundalini Yoga, Nadia?
Thank you for asking. I found Kundalini Yoga 3.5, 4 years ago, and it was at a local studio, 7th Chakra Yoga. And I asked the same question. It sounded like a roller coaster, and it seemed, it was almost a word that was kind of off-putting. And what I learned was it was absolutely the experience of the class that taught me what it is. And so if anyone wants to know what it is, you really have to experience it. Yet on book, it is an ancient practice from the East, and it started actually with the royalty and families that did it, behind walls. And there was a man who defied that and brought it out to, the streets, and was the door opener to everybody receiving that. And then later, another man brought it to the States. And so that's how it came to the States. The way that I like to describe it is it's a full kind of physiological technology where it helped me in particular with, chronic pain issues and a mind that was just rampant with shame and, guilt and self-pity and a whole bunch of other character defects, as we call them. And I loved the fact that it uses sound, gong, sound bowls, it uses mantra combined with a lot of breath work and kriyas, which are sets of exercises, always breath work, pranayama in the beginning, and always a meditation at the end. And so it's like a full experience wherever you're at in your head. If it's, anxiety and just the breath work, if it's more and more and more of that, to become, an observer of your mind. The thing I also loved about it was all the teachings. There are so many teachings, from positive, negative, neutral mind. So many rasas and, the journey and the 10 bodies. I can, go on and on. I'm certainly not an expert in each area, yet I can share my personal experience. And it's just a whole, historically based, fully integrated practice. And you can pick different pieces of it or do the whole thing in one class.
It sounds wonderful to me. I love yoga. I practice myself, meditation and asanas, but not specific kinds. I always read about and I interview so many people we talk about here. And I love this idea of integrating what we call parts of us, which to me is all in itself, they're whole. There's no such a thing as parts anyway. Everything, it feels like, but it seems like that's what we are trying to integrate, almost the mind. We are trying to understand psychologically and rationally something that cannot be understood, that we are already whole, that there's nothing that's separated.
One thing I want to point out is what really, really struck me most in reflecting back on Kundalini Yoga and its impact personally was that in other practices, I felt my mind, taking over, of, whether it was holding a position or beating myself up for not being able to quiet my mind enough. And in this practice, it's like full acceptance of where you are and the duality. It's like we think in polarities of we need to only live in light, or we're in darkness, or my mind needs to be completely still and thoughtless. And what I love about this practice is focusing on what we really truly are, which is, infinite spirits, yet accepting, we're in this physical body and it's often, in polarity. So let's get to, okay, I can live in this dualistic way. And if I'm in meditation and my mind is going, it's a huge deal if I am saying my mind is going. You know what I mean? Versus beating ourselves up and saying, oh, I can't do this right, So that's what I really love about the practice is anything that's happening in your body or your mind is just embraced. And there's something to learn about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that, Nadia. That is, to me, that's the key. That's it. Yeah. Accepting unconditionally this moment as it is, or even becoming the moment, which we are anyway. So do you consider yoga or the practices of yoga a spiritual practice, or it's just a relaxing and grounding practice?
Personally, for me, it's absolutely a spiritual practice. And spiritual can be defined in so many different ways, and it really is individual. I found through Kundalini Yoga, the Japji poem and language, and it is, to me, sadhana is like a morning practice where that is played first. It's like 28 minutes of a man's poem of his experience actually dying and coming back. And he drowned in a lake. It's not like some claim of physical, of some higher spirit or anything. It's a practical story. And it's this beautifully written poem. And I identified with it so much because it was the first time I read anything that encaptured what I had personally experienced when I wasn't breathing after a car accident and had all these injuries. And I couldn't find peace with that experience then coming back into this physical life. And it was just this, I was unaware that was the struggle. Now I look back and I can see that. But for me, the spirituality in the practice of this yoga is, settling in and saying one mantra, one simple, like 8 words. And it literally is what you said. It's Ekonkar Satnam, Kartapuruk Nirvo Nirver. Yeah, it's, 8 words, and Ajuni Saibang, and it's Ek, from nothingness, nothing, is vibration, frequency. Satnam, one is that, things are created from that vibration. One is you and your true self, without fear, Nirvo, without judgment, Nirver. And then it just goes like formless, timeless, and it just ends. And it's these 8 words, and that is so much my grounding spiritual tool. Even if I'm not necessarily like in some enlightened space, it puts my mind in its place. It's a very spiritual practice for me personally. I'm on the opposite extreme end with physicality of it. My body can be hurting, if I'm sitting in an easy pose too long. And so I'll move into rock pose, and it's the exact opposite. I am like fully in my body and can't really get out of that. And so for me, identifying the pain and breathing into it, for me, that is a form of spiritual practice. In the past, that cut me off.
It very much sounds like, even the way you speak, that can be transmitted. It's being transmitted. Breathing the pain and not trying to escape it, right? That has been one of the biggest lessons that this body has learned. To stay with pain, right? And not learn really. What is it that we get from that? It's almost like, it's a form of freedom, isn't it, Nadia? When we are able to realize that this is the experience of being a human body and includes everything. And it's just the experience. And it's just the realization of that. This is just the experience, which contains dark and light, both. It cannot be just one. It's duality.
The same thing as we were talking about with, spirituality and meditation, and how we will often beat ourselves up if we expect ourselves to quiet our minds completely, versus in this practice, becoming, if you can just observe that, then that's growth. And for me, with the physical pain part, in our modern world, the healing of chronic and physical pain is, physical therapy and medications, and everything is so body focused. And when I was doing movement with breath, the pain tolerance it's almost like it allowed an ability to just surrender to it, just as it did like surrendering to my mind and to the suffering, emotional, physical, spiritual, wherever I was at. And so that was how those two things, the physical breath and pain versus the mind going nonstop, it provided that like middle ground space to just go, okay, this is just what's going on right now. And I can, so the same thing in meditation was allowed for, for some space in the physical pain.
I would talk to you forever about these things, nonstop. You wrote the book, Home is Within You, a memoir. Your book will be released on December 8th, 2021. Talk to me for a moment, Nadia, about the inspiration and the main intention of writing your book.
There came a point after years of recovery where I knew I had reached a point of sufficient awareness and support and tools that things were all coming full circle. So quote unquote full circle, that can mean a lot of different things, but it's almost just, moments where I would either feel I've been here before, or my children would do or say something and there'd be a reminder of something that happened that I thought was maybe painful, yet that helped me in that present moment be a better parent. Just a lot of full circle experiences where I was able at that time to turn back to an old friend of mine who knew me since I was 15, who works in storytelling and production now. And she had asked me to write after the Arthur Carmona case and my car accident. And I was in my late 20s. And then life took another roller coaster, I should say, or a beautiful change in many ways, a painful beginning of a journey. And I was in a practical life where it wasn't even a thought to write. And so it was actually early last year, prior to social isolation and COVID, where I reached out to her and I said, I think it's time. And I had been writing a lot in recovery and in treatment, or just here and there, a lot, and had piles of, journals and other things. And so she said, you know what, just start. And I said, I need to start as though I'm writing to my sons, and I don't want it to be just about me. I can't do that. And she goes, well, it kind of has to be, Nadia.
Yeah.
I said, you'll understand what I mean. You'll understand what I mean. I don't, there's going to be present, intertwined with the storytelling of others, and then leading into my own to, help people. And so, the first thing I did was go through all those piles and figure out, okay, what will be used here and what won't. And then once that was down, I had the chapter titles pretty quickly. They, of course, changed, but the initial draft was extremely therapeutic, and it is very different what is there now, because it was such a beautiful healing process to actually write it. And I'm thankful that I was able to do that, while my children were in preschool, and then when they were with their father, I took that time, and then it went through, several drafts of growth and more full circle realizations. And it just evolved into that title. It initially was called Dear Son, the whole book. And the woman who helped me with the editing, and actually the cover designer, the wonderful woman, she said, it doesn't really, I've read, parts, and Dear Son is so perfect, yet it doesn't capture your whole message. And so in our conversation, that's how the title came to be. And having each chapter start with Dear Son is that much more meaningful. So that was the process.
Right. And I have asked the question before, what do you think, what makes writing so healing? Do you have some ideas, Nadia?
That's a wonderful question. I cried. I cried in so much depths of pain. And I cried in self-forgiveness. I cried in, anger. And I think what was the most profound thing about writing was having something documented pages and pages and pages and pages later, knowing you wrote something that related to it 100 pages later. So being able to go back, say, what was, and having actually physically in front of you kind of that proof, you know what I mean? And so, but for me personally, I did this for my sons and, my father's legacy, and my mom, and, Arthur Carmona, whose story, fighting for justice was never told. And so it was an honoring others and an honoring myself, and putting into an actual book people can hold in their hands a piece of vulnerability. And I knew in my own willingness to go there that that's what the writing gave to me.
I love how you titled the chapters, as I said, off record. Them alone was like, I had so many questions to ask, and they were topics for many conversations. Yeah, I love, of course, the one that we have been talking about, chapter 2, Dear Son, you're not a body nor the thoughts your mind makes. That is so powerful if we are ready and open to understand this. And then another thing, chapter 4, that caught my attention too, when you say, Dear Son, justice is but an idea unless someone makes it real. Talk to me for a moment about that, Nadia.
Oh, wow. Well, we have, the symbolism of the woman blindfolded with the scales of justice. And that's one of the beautiful symbols of, a working or a just government. But we expect it to be blind. And we expect all the facts and truth to be disclosed and presented. And that can't happen unless people document facts and truth and get it into the judicial system. And so, and it could be something as formal as a case, but it also can be something as simple as, you know, a child being pushed in a line repeatedly and, you know, treated unequally for whatever reason by the classmate, and a child going up, you know, and saying, hey, that's not right. And I consider that, you know, justice too. And so what I meant by making it real is it takes action. There's a stimulus and then there's a response. What's happening there in the middle? I mean, Brene Brown talks about this also, and allowing, you know, what's happening right there in the middle? What's the response and how are we responding and why? And so there's an instinct of unfairness, of inhumaneness, and we can't stop that unless someone takes action.
Talk to me for a moment about darkness and healing trauma. Is that something that it's also a journey? And what have you found, what methods, healing methods have you found to be the most powerful ones when it comes to trauma and darkness?
Whew.
I know, a long question.
Back there in my head to a space, you know, I came to real, true, deep, intense trauma work at the last stage. And it is the most important thing, yet the often item that has to be put last on the list, especially if you're in the system where you have to be okay. You have to appear okay. You can't, you know, dive into that work because you will be a mess if you're really, truly, you know, getting into the core trauma, especially if it began in childhood. So for me, I thought I had addressed it, yet the adult stuff that happened was so profound. I thought once I had, and I was about to say moved past. You never move past it. You learn how to walk with it and respond differently. But once I had that and the ability today to know I am still triggered by things like fraud or illusions that there is fraud happening. And so that in and of itself is work. But that superseded or overshadowed the childhood stuff that really ultimately was the reason that there was re-traumatization, because I hadn't dealt with the childhood stuff. So the modules and things that came to me were from a center that focuses very much on trauma treatment for women, and they're dealing with it through substance use disorder, substance abuse, and that it really begins with the trauma therapy. And I had thought, you know, it was the opposite order. And for many people, it has to be that. It saddens me, and it makes me, you know, slightly angry that the system, again, or treatment is not more focusing first on well, what happened to this person? How are they handling pain? And what did they learn about handling pain? And so to answer your question specifically, what entered my head when you first asked was a room through EMDR that I had to go back to that remained my structure of relating to everybody else in the whole entire world throughout my life. And I only could get there through Kimmy Hunkel and a place that I had gone to in my initial start with recovery and sobriety, yet went to, you know, as early as as recent, I should say. And I still am in contact with her as, a couple of years ago, year and a half, where I had to redo some stuff. And it was EMDR that I thought was bogus. What is this light? This is just some silly technique. But it really got me, and it's not just the technique, but she got me to get into my brain, into that room where I was able to see how beyond these four corners of a doctor's office, everything was dark. And there was this way that I responded, and parts of me, roles and survival instincts, 3 to 4, that were so predominant. But I saw me as, a little girl twisting and turning in various ways of survival. And those stuck with me my whole life. So it wasn't just one session, it was multiple. And I think that really cracked me open.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Nadia, please talk to us about EMDR, what that is. Exactly. A lot of people don't know about this method.
Sure. It's like eye movement desensitization, and it's a machine, and the light goes back and forth, or the therapist can hold like a wand and she can have it go back and forth. I actually had to start with that because the light going back and forth was just too overwhelming. I couldn't get there initially at all. I was just overwhelmed. And that is a tool that's used to desensitize the trauma, so that the focus on the light allows you to take in re-experiencing something a little less traumatically, yet enough to get you in there. And that was my experience with it. I'm not a professional therapist, and someone in that doing that professionally would need to define it, yet it is a desensitization through eye movement.
I know I have talked to a lot of professionals about it, and it seems to be very powerful in healing. And that's because it has to do with rewriting the interpretation of the trauma. So it's making a different conclusion out of that. And I love what you said earlier about that trauma doesn't really go away, it doesn't disappear, but we learn how to deal with it, how to maybe rewrite that, as some say. That beautifully, I love that message because it is so true, so true. So we're almost at the end, and I have so many other points here, way too many. I love chapter 9, where you talk about self-care. That is a huge thing for me, unconditional love and self-love and self-care. And chapter 14, also, if you want to go quicker, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. The message of doing things together. We are not alone. It is by working in community as one, which I do. It's not a belief system anymore. Everything is connected, interconnected, connected. So why not realize that? And then so many other, I'm going through here my notes. I love the message. Chapter 17, dear son, the end is often the beginning. I love that. So true.
That was the trauma work, really. It was the beginning, it was the beginning, and what structure of relationship to the world had built as a child.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much again, Nadia, for your presence in our reality, the work you do and how you do it. It's just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
much. Before we say goodbye, I do have some ending questions, but I also would like to mention something else that caught my attention in your book. Towards the end, you write, life is no longer a struggle, but rather an adventure. Life is no longer lived in the past, but in the moment. Today, I hold my children living wholeheartedly, connected to the truth and home within me. I love that ending. I mean, it's not really the ending. There's no ending, but that's beautifully written, beautifully said. Thank you. And before I ask you my final questions, would you like to add anything else or read a passage in your book, Nadia?
The part after that, I mean, I'm just very, very honored to have met you and to have had this conversation. If, there's anyone out there that would like the book that can't afford it, please contact me. This is to help people. And I just hope that it's a way for people to find their truth and hope and light and strength, within themselves, that the search isn't for stuff outside of us, that it really is in each of us. And the part that would be wonderful to read is the last paragraph. And actually that's in the intro of the book also. So that part is, I have to grab my glasses here, but it's, "Dear son, please stay here with me, knowing the one and only truth within. We are infinite beings of love, light, and warmth that nothing can change or hide. It is here where your true self remains the same, no matter what anyone says or does. It is here where your life's challenges hold purpose and beautiful rhymes. And it is here, dear son, where we first met and will forever hold hands in time."
Beautiful message. Thank you so much again, Nadia. How many times I can say that? I do this for a reason. So my ending questions, let me ask you these questions. They're open questions. How do you define love these days? What is love to you?
Space given to another and received, where one is allowed to be vulnerable and grow and find and exist, in their true selves without fear of abandonment.
Success. What is success to you? What is your message about what success looks like? And for you, of course, we can only define success on our own. But what is your message about success or the idea of success?
The first thing that entered my mind is internal peace. The other part of me is, the external, knowing my truth, and my sons, my children, seeing a parent, their mother, doing the best she can to live in that. There's no perfect days, but they see that that's the longed for and the often daily lived life. So if I, in my last breath, know I've helped them and others in my life, anyone suffering with, mental illness, addiction, chronic pain, to accept their emotions and thoughts and not let that nor others take them away from that peace within. I mean, that will make me feel successful.
Yeah. Another beautiful message. Yeah. Finding that space within that's, that holds everything. As you described, I love that word too, inner peace, the peace within.
It's making a difference, like you are. It's making a difference is success to me.
Yes, I agree. That's thank you for the encouragement. The body appreciates, Nadia. And 3 more questions. What do you love most about being in a human body?
Affection, the unspokenness of, holding my children or a safe person holding me. It's, the honoring of this is our existence. There's no need to fight it. It's this is us. We are in this physical body, and in this body, it's trained to be in survivor mode, but also the body is amazing in how it heals itself. It never fails to shock me. And so, living creatures there is always renewal, but the human body is just amazing. And, even with brain injuries, or there's an adaptation, and it's just so. But for me specifically, I'm a very affectionate person, and so I appreciate and enjoy that most, and can use also my mind, my physical brain, to solve problems.
Yeah. Oh, I love that message too. This is our existence. We are in a human body, so why not appreciate it for what it is, right? Even that includes the limitations and everything. Why not?
There's so much beauty, though, in our bodies. It's like, when we look at stallions and, wolves and them, the admiration for their survival and their beauty. It's, we can have that and should have that too with our own.
I love the word you use. It's amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing, Nadia, to be here in a human body. It's incredibly amazing. And to see the different forms, right? How unique everything is, the expressions of life.
Yeah.
So 2 more questions. What is another word for healing?
Rebirth.
And my last question is, what are 3 things you wish everyone to experience before they lose the body, before they die?
Their home within. There's peace and space within them, and a real, true, deep belief that is not their end, that their physical death is not their end, and they know that they will be always in spirit with their loved ones, past, present, future, that was just one part of their journey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful, lovely idea that really helps if we can hold that too. Although I really love the idea of freedom in the sense of accepting, even if there's nothing after this, it's okay too. This has been amazing to be here in the human body.
No fear, just to have no fear of death.
Yes.
It is not an end.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. Another billion times to that. There's no ending. Thank you so much again, Nadia. I love your presence and the wisdom, the healing wisdom that you are expressing here and now. It's just beautiful and peaceful. So before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
So you can go to www.nadia-davis.com, and that has the book there, and you can pre-order now, but you can also order it through me directly and get a signed copy now mailed to you. And so you can reach me at nadiadavis.homewithinyou, all one word. So nadiadavis.homewithinyou @gmail.com.
Wonderful.
And also contact me through the website and sign up for a newsletter there. And there's yoga classes for free and information there also.
I'll have the links, the email and the website on your podcast profile too.
All the social media links are there, and free classes and stuff like that. So please reach out. And again, if anyone is absolutely knowing of somebody that can use the message in the book, please reach out to me if there's a financial problem or anything.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Nadia. And we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Nadia Davis and her work, please visit nadia-davis.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.